about homes that are near public transit, homes that are near...
Or schools.
Yes, homes that are near a really great public school system, some of the most expensive homes in America. So the entire real estate market is subsidized to some degree. And really the question is, who do we subsidize and to what extent?
Fair question. And to bring us back to where we started this conversation, from what you're saying, this sick patient of a U.S. housing market now needs the government's help, and the government has been subsidizing the housing market when it wasn't sick in all kinds of ways for a very long time. And so there's a reasonably compelling case for the government to intervene now, meaningfully and broadly, when the crisis, the patient, is in a very acute situation.
Yes, but it's going to require the kind of concentration and focus that governments, frankly, aren't that used to putting in. But the reason I think that they can and ultimately will solve this is that it's not going away. The housing crisis we have right now is going to be worse next year. I don't care what happens with interest rates, it's going to be worse next year. It will probably be worse the year after that. And so at some point, the size of the problem, the fact that it is not going away, is going to create the conditions for that focused effort.
Well, Connor, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The Daily is supported by BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy. Clients are matched with one of 35,000 therapists and can communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public. And by JLL, committed to finding smarter ways to tackle business goals with commercial real estate solutions, from sustainability to discovering workspaces. JLL.com. JLL, see a brighter way. And by American Public Media.
The Daily is powered by the journalism of the New York Times and is distributed by APM, American Public Media. You can go deeper into the stories you hear on The Daily at nytimes.com/The Daily. That's it for The Daily. I'm Michael Robardo. See you tomorrow.
The BBC World Service makes programs that cover a wide range of topics, from science and technology.
This was a very surprising first discovery.
To arts and culture.
Music and dance from all regions.
And from business and current affairs.
It's like the worst measure of prosperity out there.
To human stories.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness. News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
Join us for the BBC starting at 9 p.m. every evening on Radio IQ.
Radio IQ is broadcasting in digital on WVTF Roanoke, WRIQ Charles City Richmond, WURV Richmond, WVTU Charlottesville, WVTW Charlottesville, WVTR Marion, WISC FM Wise, WQIQ Spotsylvania, WIQR Lexington, WEHC Emory, and in Richmond on 92.5 and Fredericksburg on 94.9. Radio IQ, a service of Virginia Tech.
For some women who menstruate, their monthly period is an inconvenience. For others, it can be debilitating and stigmatizing.
I wasn't taken seriously, even though
meeting for September the 24th, 2024. The board held its regular afternoon session at 3 p.m. today, followed by a closed session. Item K, certification resolution. In the closed session just concluded, nothing was discussed except the matters which were identified in the motions to convene in closed session. Only those matters lawfully permitted to be discussed under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were discussed. Is there a motion to adopt this certification resolution?
Motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Radford?
Yes.
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes. Item L, public hearing and adoption of resolution. Item 1, resolution adopting the Roanoke County 200 plan as the county's comprehensive plan. Welcome Philip Thompson, Director of Planning. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Glad to finally get to this end of this process. So, kind of go through this slideshow fairly quickly on the 200 plan. So, the Roanoke 200 plan, it is to replace our current comprehensive plan, but it expresses an overarching community vision as well as unique goals for 11 community planning areas. It does provide guidance for public policies about land development, public services, and resource protection, allows decision makers to study the long-term consequences on current decisions and recognize that today's actions will impact the county for many years to come. As you all are aware, as the county-wide comp plan, the last update was in 2005. That update amended 5 chapters of the 1998 plan. So a lot of stuff that's in our plans today dates all the way back to 1998. So 26 years. The reason it's called the 200 plan, when we started this effort, we were looking at the planning horizon of being 2038, which is the county's 200th anniversary. So that's why it's called the Roanoke County 200 plan. It's been going on for a while. We started in 2021, gathering information. We had community meetings in the fall. We had 12 community meetings in the fall of 2021. We then used that input to develop some draft recommendations and goals. We had another series of meetings in the spring of 2022, then another set of meetings in the spring of 2023. We had that input. We then were working on the 11 CPA documents, and then we drafted the main document. And then the Planning Commission held their public hearing in August, and then you're holding your public hearing tonight. So the main document, 10 chapters, an introduction, a background, then existing conditions that deal with demographics, natural and cultural resources, community facilities, transportation, land use, and housing. We then outline all the community engagement, have a set of vision and goals, then recommendations. So kind of go through some of them real quick. So in the introduction, we do have discussion of the comprehensive planning and the benefits of that. We give an overview of the 200 plan, talk about the community planning areas, the component plans and studies that are incorporated as part of this, the relationship between different plans and documents, how we would amend the plan, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, relationship to other documents, the planning process, and how the overall document's laid out. One of the things that we talk about in the plan amendments, we would incorporate this from a staff perspective, is we would do an annual review of our comp plan. We probably do that in July and work with the Planning Commission and you all to make whatever amendments that we need to do, hopefully by the following September, October, or what have you. And that would take care of map changes and so forth and any other tweaks that we need to make to the overall document. The plan includes the main document, the 11 CPA documents, and then other components, plans and studies. One of the things we talk about is how you can look at, when you evaluate, something that's more of a county-wide recommendation for, or a more specific recommendation that might be contained in a community planning area or an activity center plan, and that the more specific would have precedence over the general recommendation. And that's how you should look at it. So, in addition to the main document and the 11 CPAs, we are rolling the 419 center plan, the Colonial Avenue corridor study, but only the design guidelines component of that. The Glenmore Community Plan is still would be part of the comp plan, the Holland Center Plan, the Oak Grove Center Plan, the Roanoke Valley Greenway Plan, except for the perimeter trail that goes through Mr. Sheeler's property. the 220 corridor study, and then the 460 study that was just recently adopted in 2023. The background talks about, looks at the history of planning and development in the county, talked about when we had the designated growth areas, community planning areas, the activity centers, talks about the community strategic plan, your strategic plan as well, and regional planning and how they all kind of interrelate. Demographics, obviously, we talked about population changes, projections, age and gender, race and ethnicity, and then demographic snapshot of each CPA. So again, the population projections taken from the Welton Cooper shows in 2050 we'll have about 109,000 people, a little over 109,000 people in the county. You know, when we show the demographics of the different CPAs, you know, Peters Creek is the largest populous CPA that we have, followed by Cave Spring. It kind of shows the breakdown of each of the CPAs in that graphic. Natural and cultural resources, we outline existing conditions for a variety of land resources, a variety of water resources, air resources, our scenic resources in the county, as well as cultural. Community facilities, we go through all the community facilities that are in the county and give existing conditions associated with those or the time we collected the information. Transportation, which is a pretty big chapter. We talk about the different transportation organizations that are involved in the transportation process, the different plans and studies that are underway, and then talk about the different components of the transportation system: roads, transit, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, greenways and trails, rail, air, and then we talk about some new and future technology that we need to keep notice of as we continue to move forward. Land use and housing, we talk about existing land use, zoning, future land use, talk a little bit about economic development and housing. As you all are aware, our existing land use is pretty much either agricultural forest or rural residential. That makes up roughly 70% of the county. Zoning, where, you know, people are, I think, always surprised that we're 78% zoned agricultural in the county. And even from a future land use stand, it's pretty rural when you look at rural preserve, rural village, and conservation, again, making over 70% of what the county is for future land use. Community engagement, we do talk about the different methods of community engagement that we undertook as part of this. Stakeholder interviews, the fall community meetings, the spring 2022, the winter, and then the draft public hearings we had initially to get some feedback on the draft CPA docs as well as the summary document in 2023. As far as the vision and goals are concerned, again, we used the vision statement that's in the community strategic plan, that Roanoke County is a vibrant, innovative, and scenic community that values its citizens, heritage, and quality of life. We did pull over, we had some, I think, community-themed vision statements that we were bringing over that we still think are relevant, that were part of the 98 plan and part of the 2005 plan as kind of overarching themes that we still keep in mind as far as regionalism, sustainability, community identity, scenic beauty, and quality of life. We then have broad goal statements associated with these 8 topic areas. So when we talk about regionalism, Roanoke County is active in communicating and collaborating as a regional partner with its neighbors, neighboring localities, and regional organizations when seeking solutions to future challenges. Natural and cultural resources. Roanoke County is valued for its natural amenities, recreational opportunities, and cultural heritage, and strives to maintain and improve these resources for the continued enjoyment of all generations and abilities. Educational opportunity. Roanoke County promotes a high caliber educational landscape that promotes the efficient delivery of K-12 education, workforce training and lifelong learning opportunities, public service, that Roanoke County provides quality service at an affordable cost to all areas and citizens of the county. Transportation. Roanoke County recognizes the long-term benefits of community-driven transportation planning to improving safety, reducing congestion, increasing connectivity, encouraging alternative means of transportation. Economic development. Roanoke County recognizes that a strong economy benefits from partnering with current and potential businesses, cultivating a skilled workforce, and fostering connectivity to the world. Housing. Roanoke County provides a variety of housing types for all segments of the population to promote housing availability and affordability in neighborhoods that contribute to a high quality of life, and then thoughtful design that new development and redevelopment, including infrastructure and utilities, should be thoughtfully designed to ensure efficiency and functionality of the natural and built landscape. There's also objectives with each of those that are contained in those in that chapter. Recommendations. I'm not going to read all of this. So, natural culture resources, it's really to amend or develop ordinances, regulations, plans, studies, programs, policies, and educational materials that's needed to continue to protect the county's natural and cultural resources, addressing a whole host of issues. I'm not going to read all the issues. And then also to work and coordinate with local, regional, state, and federal agencies, civic and environmental groups and organizations, developers, businesses, and property owners, and residents to protect the county's natural and cultural resources. Again, these are pretty broad. Schools, I'm not going to read all of those, but basically maintain and improve the existing school facilities and build new school facilities as needed, and coordinate with the Roanoke County Public Schools to verify capacity and continue to provide excellent educational services. Again, I'm not going to read all of these. They're in your packet. Libraries, again, raise the level of engagement with the community, increase awareness about library services and programs, again, evaluating programming needs, and then also ensure timely delivery of all materials, improve services, and continue enhancing facilities. Parks and Rec, maintain and enhance existing facilities, evaluate new park, greenway, and blueway options, look at evaluate on and off-road connectivity, continue to coordinate regional efforts, develop regional recreational opportunities, update the Parks and Rec Master Plan when that's appropriate, continue to implement the Explore Park Adventure Plan, and then some other programs that are there as well. Public safety, again, provide for the efficient delivery of public safety services with minimal response times, maintain and enhance staffing, equipment, provide a high level of citizen engagement and educational opportunities, and then implement the recommendations from the fire department facilities assessment, general services, evaluate recycling program options. Will say when we went through the entire process, recycling was a big factor that people inputted in through this process. And then also the last recommendation is implement the assessment associated with this building, the Roanoke County Administration Center. IT, another thing that we heard plenty of was the need for expand broadband throughout, especially in the rural areas, but also cell phone service. And so these recommendations deal with that, trying to expand that. Water and sewer, so there's two. One of the things that we are doing with the plan, which we didn't do with the previous one, it was to actually have a water sewer service map in the plan. Mm-hmm. So the two recommendations are work with the Western Virginia Water Authority to maintain and enhance existing public water and sewer facilities, and then work with the Water Authority as well to extend public sewer lines and facilities within the water and sewer service boundary, which is shown on the map. So we do take it out to Martins Creek along 221, and we also include, so the map is where we intend, or is with the adoption of this, is where water and sewer service will be provided. If we ever have to amend that, we would then roll that into that annual review process and make adjustments to that as needed. Transportation, there's a lot. The numbers that you see at the end refer to the map. There's some that are kind of general. So there's several for I-81, widening those, supporting the airport, support the expansion of Amtrak, look at the 581 exit 2 interchange at Peters Creek, look at the completing the Roanoke River Greenway, encourage sidewalk construction throughout the county, study the improvements on 419 to Route 311 and Franklin Road, improve pedestrian and bicycle connectivity, determine opportunities to strike bike lanes and or expand paved shoulders, again, improve pedestrian and or bicycle connectivity throughout the region or throughout the county, support the construction of the Valley to Valley Trail, install wayfinding signage, beautify county gateways, collaborate with Valley Metro on opportunities to expand bus service, improve access to Explorer Park from the Blue Ridge Parkway in Bedford County, study locations for and work with others to construct electric vehicle charging stations. 18, obviously, of the news from yesterday may need to, might be part of the amendment process, or if you choose to take it out, you can, but the construction of I-73 through Roanoke Valley, evaluate the needs of additional park and ride lots, partner with VDOT and the private sector to study and create opportunities for additional tractor trailer parking, because that's an issue on the interstate. Work with regional groups on dealing with education for bicyclists and motorists. Last mile transportation options in the form of scooters or bicycles. That was not very highly recommended, but and consider expanding core trans services to meet the needs of eligible riders. All right, amend the future land use map as shown. What we do is we have obviously the county-wide map, but they are also reflected in the 11 CPA documents of what those future land use changes were. For the most part, it's just correcting things and being consistent across the board. A lot of things went from rural preserve to conservation. If it was greater than 33% slope, areas that were development in previous plans that had been developed as residential subdivisions with neighborhood conservation. And then there was other things that were trying to be consistent with the existing zoning or development pattern on the ground. So again, I think I forwarded you a document on all those changes of what those changes are. Land use also has adopted designated growth areas, since we're adopting this new plan, that to be consistent with the amended future land use designations. So that's part of this as well. Develop plans for activity centers and rural centers, as shown on the manner that complements surrounding land uses. We've talked about this, but it really wasn't part of our previous plan. We've implemented some of that, but we're actually incorporating that into the plan, the 200 plan. Obviously, one of the things we've talked about is developing a new zoning ordinance after this to allow a lot more by right uses, but our zoning ordinance dates back to 1992. Identify and maintain an inventory of commercial, industrial, and residential parcels that are appropriate for development and redevelopment. Extend infrastructure improvements to support development and redevelopment of commercial, industrial, and residential parcels of land. Update outdated proffers to promote redevelopment and expedite the development process. Conduct a housing study. And then the other thing that we're doing in addition to adopting the future land use map is we're changing 3 future land use designations or adding text to them. One is conservation. One of the things that we've added over the years to be consistent is that anything that's greater than 33% slope, that's in a rural area, we changed over to conservation. We kind of clarified that the development of that property would be by the underlying zoning, and that anything that's a state or federal land would be managed by the management plan associated with that agency. We then, for core, amended or recommended amendments to it, adding some additional language. Commercial and high-density residential. We added restaurants to the general retail shops and personal services as being an appropriate land use. We kind of tweaked the office and institutional and limited industrial to be consistent with other future land use designations that we have. We did add back multifamily residential. If you go back to the 1985 comp plan, when they talk about what was appropriate for core, multifamily density was allowed, but over the years it came out. We do allow apartments by right in C2, up to 50% of that square footage. So we put that back in because I know we've had several special use permits where we've said it's not consistent, but we want to add that back because obviously we want mixed use. And then we add mixed use to core as well as an appropriate use for that designation. When we developed the Mount Pleasant Community Plan back in the day, that's when Virginia Living Histories was going forward with their proposal with Larry Vandermaten to make that a destination or a family destination resort. So we're changing, and we had all that area designated as economic opportunity. We're just changing it to Explore Park because that's what it is, and to be more in concert with the Explore Park Master Plan and the Explore Park zoning. So those are the changes to those three designations. Obviously, there are 11 community planning areas, and for each of those, we have plans. Again, the Roanoke County 200 plan, our key components to this, and we summarize the individual needs of each CPA and identify unique goals and recommendations for implementation. There's the 11 covers of the document. We're not going to go over all of those. Each of those are laid out, but similarly throughout this. There's an introduction, a summary of the recommendation, talk about the existing conditions for each CPA in those categories underneath it. We talk about the community engagement process that's broken down by each CPA, and then the recommendations that are listed. Some of them are very similar. They're more particular into those individual designations. All right. Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on August 6th. There were no citizens who spoke during the public hearing. The Planning Commission does recommend approval of the 200 plan. You have your public hearing tonight, and hopefully then at some point adopt a resolution to adopt this as the county's comprehensive plan, and then we start the implementation. So lastly, some thank yous that I think need to go out. One, thank you all for your patience, your support, and your participation in this process. The Planning Commission, they've provided us all the guidance for many, many work sessions over the years, going through this process. County admin for their support throughout this entire process. You know, we met with a lot of different county departments. We met with a lot of different regional agencies, and they provide a lot of information that you see that's in this document. And so we want to thank them. My staff, you know, Megan Cronice and her transportation staff worked a lot on the recommendations in all the CPA documents, but also the transportation chapter. Becky James and her staff in zoning and development provide a lot of input into this process. And then lastly, the long-range planning staff. You know, Alex was pretty instrumental in leading a lot of this effort. And then he moves on to economic development. I mean, come on. But he was very instrumental in this. Ross Hemis and Sarah Gilmore, who are also here, have in the last year, in the last 6 months for Sarah, have provided a lot of information to get to where we're at, and they've are big contributors to that. Lastly, the public. In this process, we had over 1,000 people participate in the process, and really their input helped guide how we got to here today. And we strive to do that as part of any planning process, to have strong citizen engagement in the process. We think we had that, and so with that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Well, if there's none, I got one.
Sure.
I just got to say this. I wish I hadn't seen it. Under transportation, and I know when this was written, that was the case, to support I-73. Well, it was rescinded by the Commonwealth Transportation Board last week. But there's something else that we may want to consider doing going forward as we learn more on this Thursday with Mr. Dickens from Martinsville, who's going to come speak about the 220 BRIC, which is the Blue Ridge Innovative Corridor, now known as the 220 Corridor, and what the plans and vision is for that. So we'll hear more about it. But anyway, the plan is evolving. It changes every day going from now on. I mean, so how do we incorporate changes in the future?
So there's multiple ways that it can be amended, right? And we spell that out. One, obviously, if somebody goes through a rezoning and they want to do a change to the future land use map, they can go through that process. Two, you know, once we finish this, we don't stop planning, right? There'll be another plan that we'll incorporate, and there'll be other documents that we incorporate. That's another way. Our intent is probably starting in July of every year, have an annual review of it, and what we'll look at, for example, a good example would be trail development, right, for that new thing. Was rezoned to C2. It's not reflected in this. That would probably be the first, you know, we'll go through and look at all the rezonings that aren't consistent through the year and then try to make amendments to the future land use map to be consistent with what actions were taken by the board. With that, we would also look at any text changes that make sense or other incorporations as part of that process. And so if I-73 falls off, you could either say tonight that we will adopt it, taking that out, or we could just do that and amend the map. Because we have to amend the map as well, right, because we showed the map. we could just do it at that process once we have a better idea of what's there. And so the intent with all this, this adopting the plan doesn't do anything by itself, right? What I always say, it kind of lays the foundation for future actions. And anything that comes forward in the future, you all will review and analyze and make decisions about those things. It does obviously adopt the future land use map, but in itself, it really doesn't do anything, but it does lay the foundation. The thing I always want to say is we've now set the bar at this level, right? We've come up from the 98, and this is the new foundation. What I will say is with all this work is that any amendments should be a lot easier, a lot simpler to do.
Right.
Because we now have everything up to date that has all that information. So I think going forward and keeping up with it on an annual basis, it'll be more relevant and not get so out of date.
So in theory, what they taught me in Richmond was our priorities funnel into strategic planning, which goes into the comprehensive plan. It's like a full circle.
Right.
It keeps going around. So good job.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
A couple of comments, not a question so much. Excellent document. Give a lot of thank yous to staff. There was a lot of work involved here. And it's great to hear that 1,000 citizens participated. Secondly, I guess what struck me, well, many things struck me, but when you go back to the one chart that showed our land use breakdown, and we focus so much on, let's say, commercial uses or developmental uses, but when you look at our commercial and our industrial, they're of the total land in the county, they're like less than 2%.
Right.
And if we think about that, those uses really support much of what we are able to do in terms of providing services to citizens, either directly through taxes or indirectly through employment for our citizens. And so it's kind of scary in a way to look at industrial and commercial at whatever it is, 1.9% or 2.2%. Final point is on the slide that showed the extensions for water and sewer. I'm assuming we were doing that. Peter, help me. What is it? 15-2, 22-32. What we have to do the 22-32 review to extend water and sewer in order to comply with the comprehensive plan.
Correct.
I'm hoping that encompasses
It does.
what we're doing with a lot of the ARPA money that we had last year.
It is.
So this is an excellent document. Philip is correct. It's not like it's done and baked and we're never going to look at it again for the next 15 or 20 years. It's going to be constantly changing. But this will help guide us when we have to make some tough decisions. So thank you. Thank your staff.
Will do.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Anyone else?
I actually just want to thank you for the Mount Pleasant and the Vinton one that you did for my folks. They all really appreciated it and took to them, and I think I had maybe 2 copies of each left. The rest of them were all taken, and I've heard a lot of reviews about it that people really appreciated it and liked it.
So our intent is to, if you all know that the Holland Center plan, the little summary documents, kind of like a fancy brochure. So the intent is for all the CPA documents, they will be published that way. So it'll be a little bit more fancy than once we have that. We may have to we're only getting so many copies initially, but we may have to make more copies, which is not a big deal. We're not making too many copies of the entire plan. It's 300 pages. It's 300 pages for the main document. There's probably 300 pages in the CPA documents. If you look at all those, and there's 300 pages worth of appendices. So.
Well, the citizens greatly appreciated it.
And the other thing that we will do is also create a summary document of the main document. So most people are going to want, give me a summary document of it, and give me a summary document of where I live with the CPA, and that's where people will focus on.
That will be used in the future at all of our community meetings.
I imagine we'll have, we need to increase our budget for printing costs.
Right.
I'm sure.
Right, yeah, Mr. Radford, then Mr.
Philip, great document. One of the things that struck me right away from 98 was the visuals.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so intuitive to look at that and grasp that information a lot quicker. Your mind can process it just looking at the colors and everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. I have been on those comprehensive plans before with other groups, going back to '98. I remember being part of that. One of the things that I'd like to see you maybe do is make this thing really digital, either through an app, a standalone app, or some attachment to our website. It's a great economic tool.
It is.
That I would like to pull up and be able to get it right on my phone.
So obviously there'll be a digital version, and we probably need to work on that piece of it, but also then incorporating links within the document so it would take you to certain pieces of it.
Yes.
Number one. And so I tell this story, my staff has heard this multiple times. There's two things, I grew up in the 80s, right? There's two things that stick with me. One was USA Today, and the second thing was David Letterman's top 10 list. Okay?
Yeah.
Right? Those are two things. And so what we try to do with a lot of this is people don't want a laundry list of 50 things. So what we try to do in the CPA documents is try to say, okay, can I give you 10 things that we're going to do between now and 2038 in your community? And keep it like that. People can understand that. And also write it in a way that people could easily understand. That's why it's laid out the way it is. That's why I keep telling them, listen, that's what I want. Make it like that. So hopefully we succeeded in that.
Well, anyway, just to finish my comments, great job for the staff.
Sure.
You know, Alex and Sarah that are back there, and then your other staff members that have worked on it, and then the other departments. I remember when we started this process talking about it in 2021, and the length of time it would take, and it took a little while, but we did a lot of groups. I mean, a lot of planning sessions. I agree with Mr. Mahoney. 1,000 people is not bad to get involved with this plan.
And what I also like to tell, from our staff perspective is, we're actually adopting really 12 plans, right? It's the main document and then 11 other documents. And so with that, so that's why it did take a long time. But I think it's the right way to go.
Ms. Hooker.
Just a couple of quick comments. I appreciated your abbreviated version of the run-through because it is a lot. It's very detailed, and it's good information that really took a lot of time and effort on staff's part to put together. And so in no way does it diminish the hard work and information that's in this document. And I really appreciate the fact that this board is really already, consumed, especially the parts that are pertinent to our districts. And I think it's very well done. I would also agree that the graphics have been exceptional in helping people just at a glance understand what the issues are. And I think that was just fantastic. The brochures, I remember us talking about the brochure kind of concept back in my planning commission days. And it's so helpful when we have these types of meetings to be able to give our citizens a concise document for what matters to them.
Correct.
They want to be able to see the whole issue for everything that's going on in the county, but it's about where I live and where my house is. So I really appreciate that mindset of giving people what's pertinent to them in a concise document. So kudos for that. And your staff has outdone themselves.
Yep.
Please congratulate them for us.
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay. That being said, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up to speak? Anyone here want to speak? Okay, going once, going twice, we will close the public hearing, and I will ask, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion of approval for the Roanoke County 200 plan.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? There being none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Radford?
Yes.
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes. Thank you, Philip. Item M, citizen comments and communications. Any citizens sign up to speak? Nope. Okay. Moving on to item N, reports and inquiries of board members. Ms. Hooker.
No comment tonight.
Mr. Mahoney.
No comment tonight.
Mr. Radford.
I do have one comment. We have the Bent Mountain Fall Festival this Saturday, September 28th from 12 to 7. I gave you a brief intro into it 2 2 weeks ago. Now there's a chance of rain coming in this weekend, and no problem, rain or shine, we can take everything outside, inside, but stuff might be limited. But let's say you can be outside. They're going to have from 12 to 5, there'll be local vendors there. They'll have live music from 12:30 to 3 o'clock. There'll be blacksmithing demonstrations. There'll be inflatable there for the young ones. There'll be a petting zoo. There'll be pony rides, lots of children's activity. Then at 5 o'clock, they bring in the Oktoberfest celebration up on Bent Mountain by popular demand. The Sauerkraut Band will be entertaining everybody, and all day from 12 to 7, food and drinks. So we're trying to emulate, a lot of localities around us do the county fairs. We don't have a county fair, but we wanted to start something similar to that. So the petting zoo is as close as we get to a county fair and judging animals and all that. But anybody that can hear this, anybody here, come on over to Bent Mountain Community Center this Saturday, 12 to 5, rain or shine. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shepherd.
Well, I'm not going to be as short-winded as the rest of them today. So the first thing I want to do is talk about the community meeting that I had last Thursday at the Vinton Senior Building in Vinton. And first and foremost, I want to thank all the county staff that put it together and was there and made it a success. I also want to thank the town of Vinton staff and board or town council that actually showed up and helped with it. So thank you everybody for that. In speaking of the community meeting, we also put out a survey, and it is online at roanokecounty.gov. It's also, I have paper copies that you can have to mail in, that's regarding the Wolf Creek Greenway Trail, regarding leaving it gravel or having it paved. So if anyone is in need of that or the link, please feel free to reach out. The other thing that I did was I attended a Mount Pleasant meeting, which went really well. And again, we handed out copies of the 200 plan that everyone seemed to be really excited about receiving. They also have started making repairs on the ball field at Mount Pleasant, where there was some small sink areas from the geothermal tanks. So that's exciting to see that being dug up and being fixed right now. I actually attended and had coffee with the cops, as they called it, or coffee with the police in the town of Vinton. That went really well. And then I also attended the cookout for the IT, Fire, and Police Department at the Roanoke County Safety Center, and was really enjoyed meeting a lot of the folks that work there and being able to serve them lunch. And I appreciate the administration inviting me and allowing me to be there. But other than that, that is all I've got.
Good report. Thank you. The only thing I got to add is that on September 16th, staff and I toured Southern Team Hyundai, which is a new facility in the Highlands District. And all I can tell you is this is a state-of-the-art dealership, like second to none. You pull your car in, and it has into the service area, and as soon as you pull in, you go across a computer that scans your automobile, and up on the screen, there are the things that need attention. I mean, I've never seen a computer diagnose you as fast as that does. I'm sure there's something like that in the medical world, but this was huge, because people can see right then and there what needs attention in an automobile. And the cleanest service area I think I've ever walked in. I mean, it was just spick and span clean. They must clean the floor every night. And just a great experience to see this 40,000 square foot dealership in the Highlands District. And I can tell you that Mr. Kaywood was enamored with the new automobiles, especially the electric vehicles. It was something else. So you need to go by there and take a look at this great facility. And we're glad to have it in the Highlands District, making its presence known. And with that said, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Radford?
Yes.
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Norton?
Yes, thank you.